Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. Now, probably the most common question I get asked is, what's your favourite car you've ever driven? And it's not an easy question to answer, but there's one car that always comes to the forefront of my mind whenever I get asked that question. And that is the McLaren 600LT. For me, one of the, not necessarily the best supercars I've ever driven, but for me and my abilities as a driver, one of my favourite supercars. And I think if I had a lottery win, that would always be right up there. Coupled with that, especially due to my recent Porsche ownership, I am getting more and more of a thing for a 911 GT3. I've been lucky enough, I've driven a 996 GT3 and I've driven the new 992 GT3, both the normal GT3 and the Touring, and they have a very special place for me. So I've come to my good friends at Antony James Cars today to do a back-to-back test of the two cars that if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would probably go and buy. I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy a super, a hypercar, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. It would be a choice between a 600LT and a 911 GT3. The question is, which one would I buy? Do you know, there are days as a YouTuber I do have to pinch myself. Check out these two beauties. First off, to my left, an absolutely stunning, very highly spec'd McLaren 600LT Coupe. And then on the right, a 991.2 GT3 Club Sport PDK. Absolutely stunning cars. And I think, for me, there's so much similarity between these two cars, but there's also quite a lot of difference. So let's do a bit of a game of top trumps to start with. If we wander around the back, let's kind of start at the business end, the engines. So very, very different configuration. So first off, the 911 is rear-engined. It has a 4-litre flat-six naturally aspirated, whereas the McLaren has a mid-mounted twin-turbo V8 with 3.8 litres. Power outputs, this is quite interesting. The McLaren 600LT takes its name from the metric horsepower figure. It produces 600 metric horsepower, whereas the Porsche only has 500 metric horsepower. Torque-wise, McLaren's going to win again on torque, 620 Newton meters, 430 Newton meters. Now, I know that the GT3 isn't all about outright numbers, but those numbers make a big difference. Couple that to curb weight, which I find really, really interesting. Curb weight of the 911, 1,760 kilos. Curb weight of the McLaren, 1,356 kilos. So significantly better power to weight ratio. How does that transform in terms of performance? Well, top speed-wise, 198 miles an hour for the GT3, 204 miles an hour for the 600LT. 0 to 60 dash, 3.2 seconds for the GT3, 2.9 seconds for the McLaren. Last couple of things, gearbox-wise, very, very similar. They both have a 7-speed twin-clutch setup, 7-speed PDK in the Porsche, and just one of the best gearboxes. In fact, I think these two cars have probably the best twin-clutch gearboxes there are. Let's take a look around each car and its individual spec, and then in my pocket I have a McLaren key and I have a Porsche key, and I'm allowed to get them dirty. There's just something about the design and aggression of the 600LT that I love. The exit of the exhaust on the 600LT, this rear wing, it's so unique to the car, but so special. Sadly, I'm not going to be able to drive this car at night time, but if you do and you're on full chat, flames come out of those exhausts and you can see them in the rear view mirror. Absolutely exceptional. This car has carbon packs 1 and 2, and the whole rear end of the car is exposed weave carbon fibre. It's just a simply sensational thing. But then for me, when you look down the flanks of the car, you've got these little winglets here. You've got the same thing down the front. You've got the winglet just in front of the rear wheel. It's just a stunning thing. I could walk around a 600LT and look at the details all day long. They just do it for me. I don't know what it is. It just has this je ne sais quoi, and I absolutely love it. Let's have a look on the inside, because this car's pretty nicely spec'd there too. And the doors open like that, which is always a bonus. Now inside this particular car, the spec is much more comfort oriented than the two 600LTs I've driven in the past, which both had the Senna carbon bucket seats. These comfort seats look really smart, and I'm pretty sure for, if you like, a more usable road trip type car, this would be the seat to go for. However, I'm a big fan of the Senna carbons. The other thing is, if I were in a lucky enough position to buy a 600LT, I'd really want to opt for the Spider. Drop the roof, and also in the Spider you have the ability to drop the rear screen, even with the roof up, and then you get to hear that incredible orchestral noise from those exhausts behind. But the nice thing about this coupe is you've got a pretty sizable amount of stowage behind the seats, as well as the front boot. But beautiful spec in here, very understated, and I can't wait to drive it. Now, let's go and take a look at the GT3. So, the GT3. Now, one of the downsides of recently buying a Porsche is you instantly start thinking, well, I wonder if in a couple of years' time, maybe I trade up to a 911. And if I did that, I think from the 911 range, there'd be one of only two cars I would choose, either a GT3 or a turbo cabriolet. You know me and my love of soft top cars. But there is just something about a GT3. As I said, I've been lucky enough to drive the 996 GT3. I very nearly drove here, actually, just before Christmas, a 997 GT3. It's parked just off camera, but it was a very mileage sensitive car, and actually it's been sold, it's been collected this coming weekend. And I've driven the 992, but I've never driven the 991. So this 991.2 is a spanking spec. I'm not so sure I would have red personally, but as it is, with the graphic pack on it and the wing on the back, and this is the Club Sport as well, so it has the roll cage in the back and beautiful carbon buckets, but we'll come to the interior in a moment. But absolutely stunning. There is something about a GT3, arguably maybe a little bit more usable than McLaren, an everyday supercar. Both of these two cars would be awesome on track. I've driven a 600LT on track. I've not yet been lucky enough to drive a GT3 on track. I have driven a GT3 RS on track, a 991.2 actually, and it was just an incredible thing. But I was so early in the days of YouTube, so early in the days of driving performance cars, it was a tad intimidating, if I might admit that. But yeah, there's something about a GT3, that's for sure. I mean, just look at it. I've said in a couple of 911 reviews recently, I prefer cars with a wing on the back. This is more like it. I think the new GT3 wing with the swan neck is just a little bit OTT. This with the little intakes underneath it, I just think that looks absolutely stunning. Let's take a look on the inside. Now, it's very familiar 911 in here, but outstanding things on this spec. So these seats predate the 918 Spider carbon buckets that are in the modern day GT3. They still look amazing, but they have one party piece that the new carbons don't. They recline. And that means you can get in the back. Now, this is a club sport, so we've got the roll cage, which means that that stowage area in the back really is the domain of squishy bags. But it still means you can get into the back and get access to it far, far more easily, and they still look absolutely stunning. So I think the modern day 918 seats, although they look amazing, I think they do miss a bit of a trick by not being able to recline. This car has the normal inertial reel 3-point seat belts, but it also has a full set of harnesses with it if you wanted to put them in for track day use. Beautiful, beautiful thing. So I think the next thing we need to do is take each of these for a drive. So I think we go Porsche first, because I'm really looking forward to driving that 600LT. Got a good day for it. First thing you notice with this car is you can tell a lot of the sound ending's been taken out because you can hear the stones pinging up in the wheel arches. Sorry to the detailing team at Antony James Cars. Both of these cars are going to get mucky today. So let's go out and find some nice roads. I'm going to do the same route on both cars and see how they perform. Days before noise regulations and OPF filters. Listen to that. Okay, I get a big tick already. Now both of these cars are for sale. This car has 18,227 miles on the clock and is up for sale for £143,995. And you'll find out soon that the McLaren, very similar money. It's just the noise already. Now, interestingly, it's not nearly as kind of darty and pointy as the 992 GT3, but I think we need to find some twisty roads to put that theory to the test. But having driven out to my favourite hill, I'm already pretty emotional driving this car. It is everything I thought it was going to be. It's such a special car to drive. It has this beautiful feel to it, and the noise from that flat six. I'm having to be a little bit careful today because it is. It's pretty slippy and greasy. I've got the car in PDK Sport, manual change. The red line's about 8,500 RPM, a little bit less than the current version of the GT3. But that doesn't matter because the noise it makes is just unbelievable. Oh boy. The reason I wanted to drive these two cars back to back is they're at a price point where I'm just a normal mortal person. I have lots of things that need paying for before I consider buying a car for £140,000. However, that is an achievable sum of money. If I work hard and things go well, I could see myself at some point spending that kind of money. Any more than that, and I'm not that. I just don't think that's ever going to happen unless I win the lottery, of course. This car, this kind of money, the great thing as well is the residuals on GT3s are so good that your investment's probably quite safe. It's just a beautiful thing. Beautiful. Unfortunately, traffic's not helping me very much today. But just the theatre of the car. Club Sport Pack, I know I would have more practicality without the roll cage, but honestly, if I had a car like this, I can see myself tracking it in a full harness. I'd want the cage. I just think it looks great. The only spec item this car doesn't have, which I'm sure many of you would want, it doesn't have the carbon ceramic option, which isn't a massive issue for me because they'd be nice to have, but not that great to replace. Very expensive, although they do last a long time. But just overall, this is a package. Oh man. I've wanted to drive a 991 GT3 for a long time. I finally got to drive one, and I absolutely bloody love it. Now, tough day for me today. Now we've got to drive back to Antony James Cars and jump in the 600LT. Bummer. National 60. The question what the previous owners of this car were doing. 18,000 miles in the lifetime of this car. I do that every year. I'd be driving this car all the time. I honestly thought it was a done deal today. The McLaren would definitely be my favourite. But honestly, this GT3, this is right up my street. It is a stunning car. The amount of want and longing for it is quite overwhelming. It's just perfection. It's a big word, that, perfection. Porsche perfection. On a road like this, it's just still quite a bit of standing water. There's some massive potholes down here as well, which I'm having to keep a good eye out for, but it just makes you feel so confident in the car. Oh God, that noise. Dear me. I need one of these in my life. Anyway, that 600LT's got a lot to live up to now. An awful lot to live up to. Because I bloody love this car. Here we go, nose lift up. Back at Antony James Cars. And there she blows, the 600LT. So, what a selection of cars they've got in inventory at the moment. But for me, 600LT, total dream car, but boy has it got its work cut out now. Because this GT3 is lovely. to the 600LT, people. Now this car's only got 5,600 miles on the clock, but good news, it's cheaper than the GT3. It's £41,995. Bargain. Same premise. So I tell you now, I've driven it about 3 miles. The difference between this and the GT3, this is a hardcore supercar. Everything about it is hardcore. The ride, the steering, the engine, the throttle response, everything. Bloody hell is it cool. So let's go and find the same hill. I'm still still waiting for it to warm up. The tyres are still cold. Let's go and find the same hill and see what it's like to drive. But the difference straight away, it's fascinating jumping out of that GT3. I just fell in love with that car in the hour or so I was driving it. Jump in this and it's so special and so supercar. And the view out of that mirror with those exhausts, wicked. Oh my days. God, this thing makes a good noise. The drive over here, again, very emotional. I have driven one of these on the road before, but it was an accompanied drive. It was in the New Forest. There were lots of 40-mile-an-hour speed limits. But I put a card above from when I drove one of these Goodwood Media Day around the motor circuit a couple of years ago. And that still sticks in my mind as one of the best circuit drives I've ever done. This car is so fast, so capable, but it gives you this massive sense of confidence. I ended up, I think, down the Lavant Straight doing 160 miles an hour, which is still the fastest I've ever driven around Goodwood. But on the public highway, it's almost too fast. No, actually, no, scrub that. It's too fast. That GT3 felt quick and was very quick. This is on another level. It feels like I'm driving a time warp machine. You put your right foot into the carpet and things happen incredibly quickly. I mean, come on, that is just insane. Absolutely insane. I'm in. So, you've got the normal controls in a McLaren for drivetrain and chassis. I'm in sport. I don't think I need to go any more than that on the public road today, but this car is so focused, so hardcore. You need to give every ounce of your attention to it, otherwise it will bite your ass. And I didn't kind of feel that so much in the GT3. The GT3 felt a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more, I don't know, sensible. Certainly a car you could live with on a daily basis. This is a car you have parked in your garage and you take it out for a special drive, and I guess that's reflected in the mileage, right? It's only done, just over 5,500 miles. Or you take it on a track day, or you take it to the Northshire or something. This thing, if you want an occasional car, a Sunday fun day car that's gonna just make you feel alive, I cannot think of anything better than this. Question is, as I come through this 30 and chill out for a bit, which would I buy? If I either won some money on the lottery tomorrow, or I got to a point where £140,000 was doable, I guess with finance and the right deposit and the right financing partner, that is doable. Maybe I'll be chatting to Lillian Stanley Finance when I get back to see what my upgrade options are. These cars, I think, for me, are just about achievable with a little bit more hard work. But which would I buy? Well, I thought it would be an absolute done deal, 600LT this morning. And I think if you want a car that's just special on every level, the way this thing looks, this is what a supercar should look like for me. 600LT nails it. Now, the good thing about the 600LT, unlike the 675LT that I drove recently, is 675LT, Coupe and Spider were both limited runs, just 500 pieces of each. They didn't do the limit on the 600LT, so maybe that means there's a few more of them about, and prices are getting a little bit more sensible. These things started off at a couple of £100,000, and now we're talking 140 grand. So they've had a bit of their depreciation, which makes it look a little bit more attractive. I think my worry would be with this, if you did dink any of that beautiful carbon fibre bodywork or that lovely splitter, the bill's gonna be eye-watering. GT3 is still not going to be a cheap car to maintain, but at least the bodywork's not made out of carbon fibre. What would you choose? Which one would you have in your garage? Ideally, I'd have my GT3 as the daily and this is my track day car, but I can't do that. Where am I going to get 300 grand from? And I have to say a massive thank you to Daniel and Jamie from Antony James Cars for letting me come and film with these cars, and Jamie for your help. Thank you very much, mate, for setting everything up yesterday. It's very special to have been able to drive them back to back. They're both for sale. I'll put a link in the description below. Head off and look at the particulars, look at the spec in particular. This car's spec is absolutely as good as a spec for a 600LT as you could ever wish for. But yeah, massive thanks to them, and yeah, I'll see you on the next video. But I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come, and I'll see you on the next film, guys. But you take care, drive safe. Now I've just got to safely get this car back to Antony James Cars, and hopefully it's not too dirty, and I think we've